What's going on, everyone? It's your boy, Ernest Dove, New York Mets Dove Report. Let's talk deadline of sorts. This was the deadline for the Rule 5 protection players to be added to the 40-man roster. I want to get into that. Of course, I'm going to get into Nick Morabito, the type of player the Mets can hopefully now have for them at their disposal going all through the 2026 season. I want to talk about some of the guys that are unprotected. Obviously, you know how I am, but I want to get into some legit discussions, my thoughts, some intel, information, not only on the major leaguer, like what's going on with Diaz. I'll mention that for Edwin Diaz, but I want to talk about some of the minor league players that are now Rule 5 eligible because I do feel a couple of them could get drafted. But let me start. First things first, Frankie Montas. It's a version of news, like I even said online on social media. Seems like more of a clerical situation. So rather than have him be stuck on the 40-man through the Rule 5 and through the winter, having to wait until rules allow his season-long spot on the 60-day IL, might as well open up the spot right now. So probably it makes the most easiest sense as the Mets, as far as I know, if anything late in the transactions happens, the only player that they ended up protecting with a 40-man spot is Nick Morabito. And since the Mets already had a full 40-man, there goes Frankie Montas. Not really a super big deal. My thoughts, even in hindsight, on Frankie Montas, Stearns must have thought he was going to have magic again, get another Severino 2.0, and Montas was hurt from the very beginning, tried to give it a go, probably pitched injured most of the time anyway when he was on the mound for the Mets. There is his spot. That's how it went. Oh, well, let's get into the real stuff now. I want to jump into the real stuff. Even more major leaguers, let me mention it again. Edwin Diaz, of course, does not accept the qualifying offer. Obviously, he's going to get a multi-year contract. Multiple teams are interested. When I started asking some of my sources, I don't have many at the major league level. One of the sources I did have, they basically mimicked some of the stuff that's already been said online. So even my source within the Mets organization, they also feel, as of a few days ago or a couple days ago, it was looking 50-50 at this point, whether Edwin Diaz is coming back or not. So I saw it online. It was actually mimicked word for word from my source. So I wanted to mention that to my fans and my subscribers. That's the only added information I have, which is similar information that's already out there on Edwin Diaz. Now let me get to my bread and butter, the minor leagues. Looks like, again, they're only protecting one guy at the moment, putting him on the 40-man roster, Nick Morabito. Even for some of you new fans out there, new subscribers, new followers on X, they've been asking even today now since it was done. And since I'm the one who reported it, I believe Will Salmon beat me apparently by a couple of minutes. I didn't know. When I heard from my source, I posted it right away when he gave me permission from that source. And sure enough, it was already online after I went and was all excited. But I was close enough within a few minutes. I was excited about it. Obviously, Nick Morabito was excited about it. Excited to be on the roster. Again, a lot of minor leaguers, they love the Mets organization. This isn't some biased thing that I'm saying as a reporter. I'm saying for years now, especially since Cohen took over, the minor leagues have some of the best everything of all worlds for minor league players. That's why they want to be in the Mets organization. Again, their nutritional program I've been talking about for about 2 years now, plus the lab, hitting lab, pitching lab. But the nutritionist is huge. A lot of the resources. So obviously Nick Morabito is happy to be solidified more on the Mets roster. What are you getting with Nick Morabito? He's hopefully getting on base because every time he's on first, you might as well already pencil him in to second base because he's stealing every time he's on base. But again, now they usually say, well, you can't steal first base. That's the knock on a lot of players over the years, especially guys that don't have a big power tool. Now, again, in 2020, the first couple of years in pro ball, not a lot of power, of course. But in 2025, he had over 20 doubles in 2025. So he had more doubles this past season. Plus, again, the speed is insane. He's always going to steal bases. Even the stats do show he's going to put the ball more on the ground than he does in the air. This is not a launch angle player, okay? This is more of a ground ball guy, chopper kind of guy. We'll see if he has any bunts for hits when and if he gets to the major leagues. But you're going to get a guy who's going to kind of spray the ball around, dink and dunk it, put the ball mostly on the ground, not in the air. And again, the walk rate is okay. The K rate is okay. But again, how much contact can he make consistently? We all know about a guy like Luis Angel Acuna, talking about this form of a profile. That's where we're probably looking for a Nick Morabito. Like an Acuna, but can he have more of a hit tool is the question than Acuna. I can even compare him to almost a version of the lefty, Jake Mangum, who, of course, is now, I believe, still with the Rays. Hopefully, if he's still with their roster on the 40-man. Again, a guy who's going to spray the ball around, not hit a lot of home runs. But Nick Morabito, this had to be done. He's been showing himself through the Double-A level. He deserved this roster spot. I would think absolutely. I know more arms than bats get taken in the Rule 5, but a guy who's still this young, he's about 22 years old, with that kind of speed, good enough to above average defense in any outfield spot, you could easily hide him, because also what you see is what you get anyway offensively in the profile. We can still work on some things with the famous new hitting lab, see what coaches can do with him at the AAA level of hitting and his approach. But I believe what you see is what you get. Will it translate to the major leagues? That's going to be the question. But I'm excited about Nick Morabito because of these tools that he does possess. Now, who are some of the guys now left unprotected? I want to break it down to you now for the end of this segment. I want to get into some of the arms that I do honestly feel they could get drafted. Now, I'm not just saying that because I'm the prospect hugger, but I believe some of these guys are going to warrant that type of pick if teams want to give it a shot. And again, even like with Daniel Nunez, the year he got taken, it ended up being more of an injury than anything else, but he ended up back with the Mets. Even Nate Lavender now, way a year later because of injuries, he comes back to the Mets. So it's never a sure thing either, even if they do get taken away briefly, momentarily. But I want to mention some of the guys. Now, one of the guys I'm honestly most worried about losing in the Mets organization is Saul Garcia. He's the relief pitcher. He has some of the most dominant stuff in the Mets farm system. I've been saying it for a while now. Even during the 2025 season, opponents hit about a $173 during the entire 2025 season against him. So no one hits him. If you see some of the stats, he has a lot more innings pitched than hits. They're way down there in the hit department. His K rate is one of the highest K rates in the Mets farm system. And again, overall, his stuff and the 173 batting average basically put him on a Jonah Tong level of sorts, pitching-wise, when it comes to the opponent batting average stat. Obviously, Saul Garcia is a reliever, but some dominant movement on his pitches. Question, of course, like a lot of pitchers I'll basically mention this whole segment, command. How much pitch command can Saul Garcia have going up to even a possible major league level? Will he get exposed of sorts with hitters taking even more of his pitches? That's going to be the question. Even we saw it briefly with Jonah Tong. If you start moving pitches around, move the ball around, you got to make more of the strike zone. Saul Garcia, now in winter ball, Saul Garcia, extreme small sample size, he's had a low walk rate so far in winter ball. If something like that were to continue, I still say a guy like Saul Garcia is probably, maybe, going to get picked in this Rule 5 draft because he's old enough, he's solid enough, he's been to the upper minors, he's already succeeded in the upper minors. They're going to probably want to work with Saul Garcia. Another guy, of course, the enigma, or the what do we do with a catcher, Kevin Parada. Obviously, he was the former top pick. A lot of stuff can be said about Kevin Parada over the years. And it looks like, I swear, every single year of pro ball, he has this weeks or maybe a month or so of being absolutely electric. And then it slows down again in the other months. And then we've talked about defensively, not throwing a lot of guys out. I've actually had some mixed information over the years with pitchers about how is he as a catcher. Some weren't really on bar with him in the communication process. In the past 2025 season, I heard positive things about Kevin Parada relaying the game plans and stuff. So it was a mixed bag over like the last 2 years or so, different pitchers having different opinions. But again, here's a guy. What do you do? He's now Rule 5. Does any team want to take a shot with some kind of underlying thing that they're going to get out of him? If it was up to me, I really don't think it's going to happen. I think one way or another, Kevin Parada is still going to be around and available for the Mets organization to utilize through the winter, through spring, see what they can ever unlock with him. Again, the spurts and it happens up and down, but it hasn't happened enough. One of the other guys, another pitcher I want to mention, Douglas Oriana. If you've been following me on social media and on my channel, I've mentioned Douglas Oriana for at least 2 years or so. Even last year, talking with the coach, coach had mentioned I knew it as a work in progress pitcher from last year through A-ball. He's a guy that still had to work out a lot of kinks, especially with command, pitch command again. Same with Sal Garcia. Not the same pitcher, Oriana, but they see some electric stuff in him, but it just hasn't been there consistently. I believe they've been waiting 2 years at this point as far as my coverage of him individually, talking with staff. We're working on what's the progress going to look like. But a guy like Oriana, again, when you have overall electric stuff, there's a chance he's young enough. A team might want to give him a chance, bury him in the back of the pen, get him out there sometimes to throw some innings. I think he could be very electric in spurts. So I'd be curious to see if any team really wants to give it a shot based on his age, even if it hurts development-ish of sorts with a guy like that. Some of the other guys, he's kind of young but old. Joel Diaz, I've been mentioning him now for a while. I've been mentioning him since he was a teenager in St. Lucie. He was only a teenager, looked dominant. I used to love his curveball, fastball. Looked like the fastball that was high rising needed work. And sure enough, it all needed work, but more importantly, his arm needed work. One of those guys who lost a year to Tommy John surgery, but I believe now he's had about 2 seasons since. And in 2025, Joel Diaz pretty much had pro career highs or lows in his walk rate. So 2025 was an amazing season for Joel Diaz with his pitch command. But again, he's only about 21 years old, maybe turning 22. But he's one of those guys from the IFA class, so he's been around for years, plus the lost season. Will a team take a kid like this? Probably not, I would think. These things could be an absolute reach. I love the idea of him, player development-wise, but he's only been maxing out still in A-ball, keeps falling down the levels because of the lost season and his age. So it might be really rough to even hide him in any pen, even if you're one of the small market teams that never wants to try to win. I'd be worried. Hopefully Joel Diaz sticks around. Nobody wants to try to do that stash and grab. Some of the other guys, obviously he has my heart. DeAndre Smith, who just briefly played in the Arizona Fall League. He's kind of the super utility guy. You know I love me some Yonatan Enriquez. Yanni Enriquez is also a super utility player in the Mets farm system. So is DeAndre Smith, but at a higher level. DeAndre Smith has now been to the AA level. He just played a little bit in Arizona Fall League. He's a guy who's very versatile. He was kind of a late bloomer. Again, I've mentioned it. I've interviewed DeAndre Smith, and he said, hey, I'm still learning, still progressing. He was excited about some of the progress, even now through pro ball as a college bat. And in 2025, some of the numbers started going up for him. So he had his best pro season of sorts in pro ball last year. And he plays both infield and outfield. He can play at least 4 positions. I can see him playing from 5 to 6 positions, theoretically or realistically, too, as well. That's how versatile DeAndre Smith is. But the hit tool hasn't been showing enough. Not enough hitting, not enough power, but also a lot of speed. He's basically a speed demon as well. Could be interesting now at the final levels, even in AAA. Do you want to have a sneak a guy like this up because of his speed and versatility end of games? I would think that he's going to be safe. So I'm looking forward to his 2026 season. And I'm probably also looking forward to interviewing him again during the winter. So be on the lookout for that. Some of the other guys, more pitchers. I've been hyping him, it seems like forever. Felipe De La Cruz. This was finally the year, along with Dom Hamill. Felipe De La Cruz was given the shot to be a reliever, which is what I've been asking for about 2 years. Because he's a lefty who throws 95 plus. I wanted to see if he could make it work. And possibly, unfortunately, every time he jumped up to AAA, some of the numbers skyrocketed and they sent him back down. So a guy like this, what do you do? He's still young enough. I believe he's 23, 24. He'll be 24. Again, a lefty who throws 95 plus. That's always going to be valuable. But does a team really want to risk this? A guy who struggled at AAA plus a high walk rate. So, but he's very dominant. When he's on, he can give you 1 to 2-ish innings of just hitless ball with Ks. That's what he can do at his best. Be a version of a long man who racks up the K rate. But again, what's the walks going to be? What is his version of a blow up, allowing a couple of hits plus the walks? And that's how you get behind in baseball for any reliever or pitcher. I don't believe a Philip De La Cruz will get picked. But one guy who's going to be interesting is Yoander Suarez. I've been talking about him again for years. Another guy who had Tommy John, got it over with now a few years ago. He eats a lot of innings. The numbers have never been spectacular now since he got back from Tommy John, but he's an established pro pitcher who can do really well in spurts. You've seen him go a few weeks, maybe a month at a time with some dominant pitching, especially at the A-ball, AA level. But at the highest level, that's what you always have to worry about. Will a team take a shot on a Yoander Suarez, who now has kind of bulked up post Tommy John? He's eating the innings. Will a team want to scoop him up and hide him? I think it might be interesting because, again, this is a guy who eats a lot of innings. But if you convert him full-time to a one-inning reliever, I think Yoander Suarez can do really well, which is why I've wanted guys like this in the pen to begin with. Some of the other guys, they're definitely too young. Ronald Hernandez, that guy from that trade with Marco Vargas a couple of years ago, when we gave up one of our relievers, Robertson, he did not have a strong 2025 season. He's not the strongest of catchers, so he's more of a catcher / 1B. Used to be a high OBP guy, but some of those numbers went down. He had a hot streak, I believe, in 2025, but then numbers went down. So I don't think he's going to get taken. Other guys like Calvin Ziegler, yes, he still exists. I reported it some weeks back that he is in the backfields in Port St. Lucie. He's still trying. Would not think a team is going to draft him, even just to hide him on an IL stint. I don't think it's going to happen. So those are some of the main guys. Although there's an absolute complete wild card out of nowhere. My guy, Yohairo Cueva, who I've been hyping even since last year because the coach loves him. They feel he has a really good power tool that is developing, not developed. They like the raw power in Yohairo Cueva. I don't think a guy like this is going to get drafted as well. Way too young. Again, he's a bat. And he's been struggling even through 2025, getting the kind of the quirks out into some of his development. He's not ready yet, even in the minor league level, to develop. I'm still excited about his future. If you want to look back in 2-3 years, Yohairo Cueva could be a major league pitcher, but I feel he has a very long ways to go. I don't see him getting taken. So hopefully there won't be a lot of guys taken. But if I had to guess over under, I would definitely give it I would give it the over if it was 0.5 players drafted from the Mets farm system. I might even go 1.5. I think there might be 2 players drafted. I could be completely wrong because I love my guys even more than a lot of people, but I'm worried about a couple of guys. I hope you guys aren't worried about me. I'm still around. I'm going to keep making videos all through winter. As the things happen, as the Rule 5 happens, you guys will all hit me up on social media. If 1 or 2 of these guys do get taken, we will grieve together, I promise. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'll continue to make as many segments and shows as I can. I want to make them super beneficial with legit info, legit insight. I'll see you guys next time.